Good morning, everyone. I am here to continue about the topic individual differences in learning. So, let's check if you do have an idea about their different theories. Direction. Choose the words or a phrase according to their different theories. You need to identify where is it belong. I'll give you 5 minutes to answer. Okay, done answering. Let's check your own paper if you do understand their different theories. First is the Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences theory. Second, the triarchic theory of intelligence, proposed by Robert Sternberg. Third, David Perkins' theory of intelligence. And the last one is the Jean Piaget theory of intellectual development. So, let's tackle about their theories. First is the concept of multiple intelligences, a theory proposed by Harvard psychologist named Howard Gardner. Intelligence is often defined as our intellectual potential, something we are born with, something that can be measured, and a capacity that is developed, difficult to change. Gardner identified 8 components of intelligence. He asserts that we are born with the potential to develop a multiplicity of intelligences. These intelligences are most often looked and not tested by researchers and psychologists, like those skills and abilities valued in different cultures. Gardner first outlined his theory in his 1983 book Frames of Mind, the theory of multiple intelligences, where he suggested that all people have different kinds of intelligences. So first, we have here a visual spatial ability, the ability to know where one is relative to fixed locations, ability to accomplish tasks requiring 3-dimensional visualization, ability to imagine and manipulate visual objects in one's mind. These individuals are often good with directions as well as maps, charts, videos, and pictures. People with visual spatial intelligence can read and write for enjoyment. They can recognize patterns easily. Like for example of occupation in visual like surgeons, sailors, and fishermen. The next one is the verbal linguistic intelligence, the ability to communicate well, orally and in writing, perhaps in many languages. People with linguistic verbal intelligence can remember written and spoken information and are able to explain their things. An example of an occupation is a poet, a writers, and a orators. The next one is a logical mathematical intelligence, the ability to learn science and mathematics, the ability to handle complex logical arguments. The individual tend to think conceptually about numbers, relationship, and patterns. People who have logical mathematical intelligence can have excellent problem solving. Like example of an occupation is a mathematician or an engineer. The next one is a bodily kinesthetic intelligence, the ability to use physical body. People who are strong in this area tend to have excellent hand-eye coordination and dexterity. They are skilled at dancing and sports, like for example of an occupation, a dancers, an athletes, and a acrobats. The next one is a musical or rhythmic intelligence, the ability to learn or perform and compose music. They have a strong appreciation for music and are often good at musical composition and performance. People with musical intelligence enjoy singing and playing music instruments. Example of an occupation, musicians and a composer. Interpersonal intelligence, the ability to sense other people's feelings and be tuned with them. These individuals are skilled at assessing the emotions, motivations, desire, and intentions of those around them. People with interpersonal intelligence can communicate well verbally. Example of an occupation, a salesperson and a politician. The next one is the intrapersonal intelligence, the ability to know and have a deep understanding of one's own mind and body, and be aware of one's own desires, feelings, and motives. They tend to enjoy self-reflection and analysis, including daydreaming, exploring relationship with others, assessing their personal strength. People with intrapersonal intelligence can understand the basis for his or her own motivation and feelings. Example of an occupation, a psychologist, therapist, counselors, or a wise elder monks. We have here the last one, the naturalistic intelligence, the ability to know and understand different species, recognize patterns in nature. According to Gardner, individuals who are high in this type of intelligence are often interested in nurturing, exploring environments, and learning other species. People with naturalistic intelligence are interested in subjects such as botany, biology, and zoology. Examples of occupation are a biologist and a naturalist. So, we're done with the Howard Gardner's multiple intelligence theory. Let's move on to Robert Sternberg's triarchic theory of intelligence. The theory proposed by psychologist Robert J. Sternberg contends that there are three types of intelligence: practical, the ability to get along in different contexts; creative, the ability to come up with new ideas; and analytical, the ability to evaluate information and solve problems. Sternberg argued that practical intelligence says a person's ability to react and adapt to the world around them, as well as a creativity, as equally important when measuring an individual's overall intelligence. First, a practical intelligence, ability to do well in formal and informal education settings, adapting to and shaping one's environment. We have here an example in project-based learning. Students can create mock city council proposal considering real-world constraints like budget and local demographics. Real-world math problems. Students use the budget and a list of supplies to plan a school event balancing cost and priorities. Let's look at an example. Anne, she wants to purchase a used car and doesn't want to be taken advantage of. So, she is prepared with price comparison and doesn't let the salesman talk her into purchasing any unnecessary extras. Because of this, she gets a better price than the person who bought a similar car than the day before. That is an example of a practical intelligence. So, let's move on to experiential intelligence. Ability to deal with novel situations, ability to think novel ways, the ability to effectively automate ways of dealing with novel situations, so these are easily handled in the future. Experiential intelligence refers to as creative intelligence. It involves a person's ability to apply their existing knowledge to new problems. We have here a componential intelligence, ability to process and analyze information, metacognitive, executive performances, and knowledge acquisition components that help steer the thought. Steinberg associated the componential subtheory with analytical giftedness. This is one of three types of giftedness that Sternberg recognized. Analytical giftedness is influential in being able to take apart problems and being able to solutions not often seen. The next one is the David Perkins analysis of research studies on the measurement of IQ and programs for developing better IQ. We have here a neural intelligence. Involves the genetically determined abilities of a person's neurological system, the hardwired original equipment that determines the processing speed of our brain, measured by traditional IQ scores. Neural intelligence, perhaps borrowing from his artificial intelligence backgrounds. Perkins calls this the hardwired original equipment that determines the process and the speed of our brains, similar to computer hardware. There is not much that can be done to increase neural intelligence. This is the type of intelligence that is traditional measured the IQ score. The next one is the experiential intelligence. Refer to one's accumulated knowledge and experiences in different areas. It is thought of as the accumulation of one's expertise. Because of this, the more we experience, the more we expand our experiential intelligence. It encompasses all of our experience as a whole. Since this type of intelligence can be accumulated, people who are exposed to stimulating environments have an intellectual advantage over those who are exposed to less stimulating environments. If we want to follow through the computer analogy, we would think of this as the different programs that we can run. The next one is the reflective intelligence. Refers to one's broad-based strategies for learning, for attacking problems, and for approaching intellectually challenging tasks. Reflective intelligence refers to a person's ability to use and manipulate their mental skills. These are the thinking strategies we use to effectively utilize our neural and experiential intelligence. This includes self-monitoring and self-management. You can increase your reflective intelligence by increasing your awareness of how you think and making changes to those patterns when necessary. Reflective intelligence would utilize the hardware to run its program, like operating system. It can also be upgraded. So, let's come up with the Jean Piaget's theory of intellectual development. This theory asserts that the developing child builds intellectual structures or schemas, mental maps of network concepts for understanding and responding to physical experiences in the environment. Piaget proposed the intelligence grows and develops through a series of stages. Older children do not just think more quickly than younger children. Instead, there are both qualitative and quantitative differences between the thinking of young children versus older children. This theory asserts that the developing child builds intellectual structures or schema mental maps of network concepts for understanding and responding to physical in the environment. Piaget's stage theory described the cognitive development of the children. First, the sensory stage of cognitive development, 0 to 2 years old. The child learns through reflexes, senses, and movement. The child's thinking involves seeing, hearing, smelling, moving, touching, tasting, and the like. During this earliest stage of cognitive development, infants and toddlers acquire knowledge through sensory experiences and manipulating objects. So as you can see the pictures, child can learn through reflexes, senses, and movements. That's why the 5 senses are used. The next one is the pre-operational stage, 2 to 7 years old. The pre-operational stage of cognitive development. At this stage, the child begins to develop language and begins to use symbols to represent objects. Generally, he thinks in the present and has difficulty with the past and the future. The foundation of language development may have been laid during the previous stage. At this stage, kids learn through pretend play but still struggle with the logic and taking the point of the view of others. They also often struggle with understanding the idea of constancy. Like for example, a researcher might take a lump of clay, divided into 2 equal pieces, and then dig a child the choice between 2 pieces of clay to play with. One piece of clay is rolled into a compact ball, while the other is smashed into a flat pancake shape. Because the shape looks larger, pre-operational child will likely choose that piece, even though the 2 pieces are actually the same. The next one is the concrete operation stage, 7 to 11 years old. As physical experiences accumulate, the child starts to build logical structures that explain his physical experiences. Starts to solve problems not only with concrete objects but with abstract ideas as well. During this stage, children also become less egocentric, and begin might think and feel. Kids in the concrete operational stages also begin to understand that their thoughts are unique to them and not everyone else necessarily shares their thoughts, feelings, and opinions. Piaget determined that the children in the concrete operational stage were fairly good at the use of inductive logic or inductive reasoning. Inductive logic involves going from a specific experiences to a general principle. An example of inductive logic would be noticing that every time you are around a cat, you have itchy eyes, runny nose, and a swollen throat. You might then reason from that experiences that you are allergic to cats. So, ani nga stage, mas maka-notice na nga ang mga bata, hilig na kuno na sila mo reason out. Ano ni mo mahibawan kung imuha na siyang ma-experience through this stage. So, we have here the last one, a formal operation stage, 11 to 15 years old. The individual has developed mental structures that enable him to do abstract reasoning, can think hypothetically and seductively, can solve problems logical fashions, thinking approximate that of an adult and includes conceptual reasoning. The final stage of Piaget's theory involves an increase in logic, the ability to use deductive reasoning, and understanding of abstract ideas. At these points, adolescents and young adults become capable of seeing multiple potential solutions to problems and think more scientifically about the world around them. Let's take for an example. A student forms a hypothesis about a science experiment. They predict potential outcomes, systematically test the hypothesis, and then they analyze the results. So, the ability to form hypotheses, conduct experiments, analyze results, and use deductive reasoning. And that would be all. Thank you.